All right, let's go ahead and just kick things off here. So we're 2 minutes after the hour. So first of all, just want to start off by thanking everyone for joining our Ask Us Anything session. A little background of the intent of this is to really just give our customers some time to ask really any question about Patch My PC, whether it's product specific, company specific. We did have in the registration form a question that you could pre-submit. So we do have probably about 20, 25 questions that are pre-submitted, and we'll flip back and forth between live questions from you all, as well as questions that were pre-submitted. So what we wanted to do to get things started is we actually want to try to get some live questions going in just to get some discussion going back and forth. So there are two different ways that you can ask a question. The first is you can use the raised hand feature within Microsoft Teams. Now, one thing I will mention is what we did just to try to avoid any type of background noise is by default, all attendees are muted. So what will happen is if you have a question and you want to come off unmute and just discuss that with our team and go back and forth, if you use the raised hand feature, we'll be able to see that and we could unmute your mic so that you have the ability to come off of unmute. So that will be the way that will probably allow the most discussion is if you want to ask a question on voice. There is also a Q&A feature within Microsoft Teams. So you can also feel free to post questions there as well. So to get started, let's just jump right in. Does anyone on the call have any questions that we want to start with? What you can do is you can just click under the reactions, if you hover over that, and then click the raised hand, and we'll be able to see that. All right, so we will unmute Bobby and allow a microphone. Okay, go ahead. Are you able to unmute Bobby? Like the hand is still raised. You should have the option, Bobby, to click unmute if you have a question. Okay, if Bobby's not coming off, we could start with just a pre-submitted one just to get things going. So the first pre-submitted one that we had actually in the Q&A here in Teams was we have the standard edition of Patch My PC installed and running. We want to know what are the advantages of the Plus version, specifically creating packages for SCCM from your app catalog. So this is a great question. I can actually jump over to an environment and kind of show you what that looks like and some of the benefits here. So the question was around what's the benefit of Enterprise Plus would be the subscription level that we call it. So just to give a little high level overview, if we jump over to our subscription details, is the top level for Enterprise Plus. The key thing that that's going to get you is the ability to do application creation, both in ConfigMgr, and it also gives access to Microsoft Intune. So the real key value here is in addition to updating applications, which would be part of those lower SKUs where you can update apps that are already out in your environment, you can actually package base installations both in Configuration Manager or Intune for the initial deployment. So for example, we've got 7-zip up here. What we could do is we could just enable the 32-bit version of 7-zip, and if I run a synchronization, what we'll be able to see is the time that is saved. So if we look at our log, we'll be able to see all the information happening, such as downloading the installer from the vendor, automatically adding things like command lines and detection methods. And within a couple seconds, we've got a brand new application created for 7-zip. So there's a couple of value adds for that. The first and obvious one would be time savings. So you don't have to go manually download installers, do research for detection method and command lines. We save all that time for you. And probably the second most valuable thing outside of the time is the security aspect of this, because not only do we create the initial installation for that application, but we also keep that base app up to date so that when new computers are coming online, they're always having the latest version of that product installed. So that's kind of the key difference for that specific aspect. Anyone else want to add anything into that one?
But I think, Justin, it's worth calling out, like you talked about the subscriptions there, is, our basic ConfigMan is the Enterprise Edition, but we also have a basic Intune, which is Intune Essentials, and both of them have more premium functionality at our Enterprise Plus feature. So it's a increase in all those red ones. And so Justin definitely talked about the app deployment feature, but also on the Intune side, upgrading to premium or to our Enterprise Plus gives you some more Intune functionality that historically have been gaps in Intune compared to ConfigMan. So those are interesting too.
Yeah, so we have 3 or 4 different premium features from Intune Essentials versus Enterprise Plus. One is kind of simulating the equivalent of ADRs. So for example, let's say that you had critical security updates and you wanted to have an assignment that's totally dedicated to that. As long as we have a product enabled in Intune, which let me just do that first. Enable Chrome. You could have more aggressive assignments for security-based updates using the dynamic assignment feature, which is part of Enterprise Plus. And what that would allow you to do is if there's like a critical security update that say has a CVE or the severity level is critical, you can create assignments that would take priority with more aggressive deadlines. Like let's say you wanted a security update to go out to all your devices and you want it to be as soon as possible. That's one example from what David was saying that would be a premium feature above the essential SKU in Intune that would be available in Plus. And the breakdown on the website as well, each of those will have a feature that you can hover over. And many of these will have a link that goes into more details about each of the specific features that are available in those SKUs. Okay. Anyone else want to use the raise hand and come off unmute for a question that we can discuss?
Miguel's got his hand up.
Yeah. Let me allow unmute. Oh, no, I think that might be the same one that we had. Miguel, are you able to come off unmute if you want to ask a question? Yeah, I think that might have been the same person that wasn't coming off. So let's just jump into one of the next pre-submitted ones.
That
then
was
we'll bounce.
Bobby earlier.
Okay, gotcha.
Miguel has no microphone.
Yeah, feel free to just throw the question in the chat, Miguel. We'll answer it.
All right, Adam or Andrew. So here's one of the pre-submitted if you want to read it off and kind of talk about this one.
Go, Adam.
Yeah, so we had a few ideas talking about this one before the call. So we kind of took the idea that the customer might have 32-bit of any given app installed on their devices. At least that's what we're taking away from this question. They want to phase in the 64-bit as like the favorable app. And there's a few ways you can do it. We talked about using the supersedence model. Both ConfigMan and Intune offer a supersedence model where you can say one app supersedes another. The caveat with that is that you would need the 32-bit app already existing in the platform, which if it's already in our catalog, that's great. It's easy peasy. Another option is to throw in a prescript, which you can also do in our product. If the 64-bit of the app exists in our catalog, you can add custom scripts via one of our right-click options. And in the prescript, you could look for the 32-bit piece of software and uninstall it. And the third option would be probably the easiest, and it is actually out of everyone's control. Vendors often natively do this for us. I can't think of any product on the top of my head. Maybe Andrew. Zoom. Yeah, so if you have Zoom 32-bit and then you forcefully deploy the 64-bit of Zoom meetings, Zoom will actually do the nice thing of doing that migration for you. And whether it migrates settings or not, that's going to be on a per app, per vendor basis. So, in that circumstance, definitely test it out. And if I was in your shoes, whoever asked this, I would definitely go for the third option first. Just do it manually on a device and see if it does it. Because if it does, that's a win. That's an easy win. All you have to do is deploy the app as required, and then it does it all for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This question is a good reason why we do webinars like this or Ask Me Anythings is, in prepping for this meeting, we realized, oh, this actually is an interesting feature ask where we could improve our features because, then one of the challenges here is we don't have the 32-bit apps in our catalog. Then it's hard to create logic or relations on that to supersede. And also there's like Adam says, different apps do different things. Some apps handle it, probably most don't. And so we realized there's probably some feature improvement we could do here where we could put some metadata on, does the 64 app know how to upgrade or transition gracefully from the 32-bit, or could maybe we give the customer a built-in free script for it that we know works. And so Justin, you want to show like our ideas portal? I think we're going to make sure that ideas out in our ideas portal. Adam, can you check? And if not, let's add the maybe put an intelligence in our catalog to handle 32 to 64-bit upgrades.
Yeah, I'll take a look, and if I make one or find one, I'll drop a link to it in the chat so people can vote on it.
Awesome, thanks.
All right. Let's jump to the next one. Are there any in live chat that we should look at as well before the next PowerPoint pre-submitted one? That I know it looks like we're answering a lot directly in the chat.
Yeah, and Jake, I'd say you're doing a lot. If you see like ones that we should raise verbally, because it'd be interesting to talk about, just holler them out.
I did see one that's kind of interesting. Somebody asked if it was an option to create packages instead of apps in ConfigMan. So I'd be curious on the use case for that. We actually started originally creating packages. We used to create packages and programs, and then we migrated to Configuration Manager applications. So yeah, if there's some use cases where you specifically need packages, feel free to pass those along. We deliberately migrated away from them.
Awesome. It looked like there might have been a few issues with unmuting mics, even when we tried to allow it. So we just set everybody to have the ability to use their microphone. So just be aware, probably just to keep it organized, if you still wanted to use the raised hand, and then you could come off unmute. So hopefully that helps the issue where it didn't seem like people could unmute. All right, so let's jump to the next pre-submitted is bring your own app, also planned for Patch My PC. This also, I think, relates to custom applications, which has been a trending topic. So Andrew, Ben, or DJM, do you guys want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I can start with yes. Yeah, we've putting a lot of engineering thought and time into bringing custom apps. We're aware that it's one of the biggest asks from our customers, which is the reason we're putting a lot of effort into it. There are some challenges. We can probably get some apps in really quickly. And so there's another question later on. And so the other question is probably going to have the same answer as this one. Is it apps that can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Interesting. So let me give you an example is the best thing to do. So if I take a simple MSI, I can upload it to a portal somewhere and the detection method just works, then it's super easy. And so if that's the case for every single application, then we can bring that feature to market very quickly. Unfortunately, vendors often build apps in a unique way. And so those apps often require a lot of test and dev on our part, so we can install the app quite easily, but then how do we detect if the installation was successful? Sometimes that's not as simple as just looking for a registry key, so we're looking at the different applications, we're looking at the different challenges that some apps bring to us. But it's certainly a feature that will come. And if you got any more thoughts on that, Andrew, specifically?
I think you hit all the main points.
Yeah, let me add a little more too. Thanks, Ben. Like custom apps is a word that means lots of things to lots of people. I think there's 4 major cases. One is there are publicly available apps that anyone can get from a vendor website that aren't in our catalog, right? So that's category 1. Category 2 are, okay, sometimes those apps are moved to a other community website, whether it's Chocolatey or other things. Number 3 might be, okay, now sometimes customers have their own apps that aren't publicly available. Traditionally, we call them line of business apps. And number 4 might be a derivative of number 3, which says, and sometimes those companies have multi-tenant, environments inside their big company, and they want to be able to take their own line of business apps and move them around in their hierarchies. What we have every time we see this question is we think, okay, we have a very good set of experts and engineering tools that allow us to do the packaging is the wrong word, but the metadata operation, the hashing, the security, and the testing on these apps. And our question is, okay, how do we take that and make it work for one or more of those 4 scenarios to streamline it? So the way we think about this is take our tools and our expertise and allow customers to light up some of those 4 options. And so I know one of the ways that Andrew has looked at this in the past is we just have really good tools, and maybe we just release our tools. But I think we could do even better than that, which is we could release our pipeline. And so that's kind of our approach. So if you feel that, you know, your scenarios are in the case of, okay, there's other apps out there and other companies are surely publishing, can Patch My PC help us streamline it by making these tools more and their pipeline available to everybody so that we could all maybe add to the catalog faster? Our answer is yes, we would love to do that, and we're figuring out a way that we could do that and have a higher bar of testing than we even have now. Or maybe you're thinking, okay, we publish a lot of internal apps ourselves. Could we use Patch My PC's application installation experience and their patching experience so that from an end user experience point of view, all the apps that get installed, whether they came from first party or third party or us themselves, have the same kind of experience? And we would say, yes, we would love to do that too. So that's how we think about this problem is we have a pipeline of technology and expertise, and we want to bring those to these other scenarios. So hold tight. We're this at the top 3 of our list of major innovation that we want to bring.
All right, Dennis, do you want to try to come off on mute for your question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome. First off, hi, Cody. Former Humana employee, and I'm from Humana.
Cody getting a call out. The rest of us are feeling left behind. I'm going to ping my friends. Hey, join the webinar.
So I had a question. We had put a request in, and a lot of people had liked it, and I just wanted to kind of hear maybe more of an explanation of why we couldn't do it. It was the WebDriver software. Here at Humana, we have a lot of homegrown apps that use that WebDriver through Edge or Chrome. And I know we had packaged it here and made it where it would show up in Add Remove. I know that's some custom work, but I was just wondering how we couldn't get that done in Patch My PC, because if we could do that, it would help us easier manage. You know, we put it with the Edge update and kind of goes all in one swipe rather than multiple deployments.
Yeah, what was the name?
Andrew?
I was going to just ask, what's the name of the application again, Dennis?
It's there's 2 of them. There's Edge WebDriver and there's Chrome Chrome WebDriver. They're just WebDrivers. Yeah.
Okay.
Edge was the big one because we had a app that was basically needing to be updated at the same time or it would break their app. So we were trying to get Edge together with the WebDriver so it wouldn't break their app.
Gotcha. I think Justin's got it on the screen now. That particular idea.
Yeah, it's like.
Well, we can blame Adam because it's got his name against it. So
this is one of the
this one, Adam.
This is one of the things we address actually in our article about how we evaluate apps. So one of the criteria we use is we need to be able to detect it, and you know we have a pretty rigorous and standard way of detecting our applications that we manage. And at this moment, the way that is put together, it's just a standalone binary. we've got some ways of doing standalone binaries for updates specifically, WSUS based updates, but it doesn't go across all of our platforms right now.
Gotcha.
And Dennis, I know you said that you repackaged it, but something that we don't today, and I think that it's pretty good that we don't do, is that we don't repackage software. We don't take any vendor software and reprocess it through a new MSI. That's something we don't do because that can cause some problems. I appreciate that's how you solve the problem, which is great, but literally what Cody just said, plus that today, right now at least, we don't repackage software. I'm not saying we never will, but
Right.
that's just
Maybe
not
that
part of our
feeds
flow.
into the whole, if you all release your tools, maybe then we can do it type of situation.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, maybe that would enable customers to easily do it better in a more standardized way.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'd also add to that as well that we are completely innovating in this space. So when we talk about custom apps, we're looking at, can we support other application types to install moving forwards as well. So on this ideas page, one of the prerequisites at the moment to get an application in the catalog is executable MSI or MSP. Now, we're aware that a lot of the ideas that our customers submit are based around compressed installers. So that requires you to download the compressed installer from the vendor's website, manually extract it, and then perform the installation. So today, that isn't something we support, but it's something that is always in the back of our minds as we look at bringing these custom app features into the product. So if it is something that we've previously marked as no-go based on our technology today, it's certainly something we will revisit as we move forwards.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. So jumping to the next one, how are you continuing to innovate to differentiate yourself from competitors? David, do you want to start with this, or do you want me to start?
Go ahead, Justin. Sorry, my
Sure, yeah.
got stuck.
Sure. Yeah, I can jump in here. So I think a big thing that we think about quite a bit at Patch My PC is, how do we create the best customer experience? And I think that starts first and foremost from the team that we have here. So we want to make sure that we have a team that is able to support our customers in a awesome way. So I think that's probably the first thing from my perspective when I think about how do we ensure that we create a unique experience that is awesome all the way from the first interaction that you have, whether that's a quote, demo, setup call, until you've been with us for 8-9 years, like a couple people on this AMA would be. Like, how do we ensure that we're providing that type of experience? And as long as we get that right, and our people are always putting the customers first, and we have knowledgeable team members that are able to do that, I think that's the first thing from my perspective that is key. Technology and the product is obviously very important as well. Maybe David, I don't know, maybe you want to jump on after that, but I think that's where it all starts, is our team. Yeah,
100%, Justin. I didn't even think about it that way, but I think that's more important, which is, and we have our values, and a lot of companies post values, and values maybe are afterthoughts, but for us at Patch My PC, we really are committed to our values. And a couple of the ones there that I think are relevant here is we think big and we create experiences. And create experiences, coming from an engineering background, I think, oh, we build like cool UI in our product. No, it's not just that. It's like we interact with customers, and all those interactions, we aspire to them to be the highest quality interaction. And so, for example, we don't have sales folks that are fully dedicated to doing sales here at Patch My PC. When customers come in and interact with us and need help, our technical experts are the ones that answer their questions and help them make purchasing decisions. And so, when you are working with Patch My PC, you're going to get kind of the cream of the crop, the great experts in the industry that don't just know Patch My PC and how to install it, but ConfigMan and Intune and the scenarios. Most of them have worked in IT in the same jobs that many of our customers have, so they have the empathy and the knowledge of the problems you have. And so it starts with that interaction where we do a demo call with you, or an environment review, or even you know, we'll get on the call and help you set up the product in your production environment live to make sure it's working smoothly and address any issues as it goes. So it's not a slow kind of back and forth with us on support. And so we create that top of industry, I think, experience. And during those conversations, we gain insight and get information about how we can do better, both from providing functionality, but also even innovation. And then we come back and we add that to the list, and we track all the different things that we can innovate. And then we have a commitment to keep plowing and keep adding value and keep adding capacity in more apps and more features. So the short answer is, how do we continue to innovate, to differentiate ourselves from our competitors? We talk with our customers all the time and get ideas from them on how we can make their lives better, and then we build it. That's what I would say.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, before we jump to the next pre-submitted question, does anyone want to use raised hand and come off on mute for a Q&A over voice? Okay, Mark, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Good morning. Thanks for having this. I know there is I do home lab, which I know a lot of the attendees do, just to try and learn stuff. I have used in the past, I think there is a free version of Patch My PC that's very limited, if I recall. I thought I heard at MMS of maybe one that has a few more features that was a fairly low price license. So did I hear that correctly? And if so, can you kind of go into that?
Yeah, for sure. So do you recall from MS, was it a kind of more personal home use of our enterprise product for Intune or Config Manager is likely what I think it was? Do you recall if it?
Yes.
Yeah. So we do have on our website an option where people that are enthusiasts, like in the space, they have the option to purchase what we call a personal lab subscription that's valid for, it's either up to 5 or 10 devices within either a Config Manager environment or an Intune environment. It's either 5, I think it's 5 or 10. I'm not sure the exact amount, but if you have more than that within your home lab for Config Manager or Intune, it won't work. But that's a cheap license. I want to say it's about $25 per year. And really the intent for that is either customers that have a personal lab that they want to run it in can do that. But that's the lab. We'll see if we can include a link too, but that's the use case for it, where if you do have a personal lab, you can do that.
Yeah, because we have it in our production environment, but just for kind of testing things, it'd be nice to have a smaller version of it in the lab. And I think it even would connect to Intune and all that, right? So
yeah,
it would be cool to have that. So thanks for that refresher.
And Mark, if you're using it in the same customer environment, like inside the customer's environment, our licensing allows you to use it across multiple ConfigMan hierarchies or Intune tenants. We just care about the total device count. So if you're just using like one device in a test lab, you could probably use the same license you're using on your big install.
Oh, okay. Well, in this
one
case,
more license.
Yeah, in this case, it's from our home lab. So
okay,
then
yeah, what Justin's saying is a good option.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the use cases too for the personal lab was, maybe you do consulting, but you're not quite meeting the criteria of a free, not for resale license. That one's a little bit more stringent. You can go to that license there as well. Were you about to say something, David?
Yeah, and I was going to say, your question mark started with about Home Updater, and the reason we really don't steer people towards Home Updater, while that's where kind of Patch My PC started, that's its legacy. It is a free version that doesn't work anything like the current version. It doesn't have as many apps. It's not as updated, either catalog or technology-wise, as frequently. And we don't think it has the best experience. So, even for like your situation, like what Justin pointed to here is a better option, because it's going to back more what you're using in your production corporate environment too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did
Cool.
throw the link in the chat, by the way, Mark, for that personal lab subscription.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go ahead and take a pre-submitted question. So this one was, how does Patch My PC ensure releases are reliable sources and have no malware? So let me jump over and kind of walk through some of the basics of how we do security validation. So from a high level, every single binary that touches our catalog, so whenever we have a new catalog update, say there's a new Chrome or something like that, we first run the binary through VirusTotal, and then there's a hash that gets created for that specific binary, and that gets added to our catalog. From there, we code sign our catalog, and our publisher is only configured to process metadata about updates that we've released if it's code signed from a code signing certificate that we use that's also a token-based code signing cert. So we have 3 different ways that we can sign it, 3 different people that have those tokens. So when we release that, there's 2 engineers that have to be on that process. And in the event that, let's say, a vendor's website that we're downloading an update from, say from google.com or really any vendor, whenever that update is being processed, it's going to compare that the hash of the binary matches the same hash that we uploaded through VirusTotal. So in the event that even, let's say, a vendor's website that we're downloading an update from had some type of attack where they replaced the file, it wouldn't match the hash that we did for our content validation. So at a high level, that's some of the testing that occurs. And we'll include the link to this deep dive within the chat as well, in case you want to look into that more. But that's at a high level. Those hash checking, their certificate validation are some of the key components for how we make sure when we release, when you download, it's the same thing. Awesome question. Jump back over. Anyone want to ask a voice question before we jump to the next one? All right, Mark, do you want to unmute?
Sure. Yeah. Your last question reminded me of this. Seems like about every couple of months, right after Patch Tuesday, we'll receive a message that we couldn't download this. The Patch My PC publisher couldn't download this because it's not in our catalog yet. Can you describe a little of that process? It seems like it's the same vendors every time, that they don't have their information down, into your catalog yet, and therefore we have to run the publisher later to grab it.
I can
Okay.
answer this one.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
So what you're seeing there is, and the culprit is usually Google Chrome. What you're seeing there is Google Chrome has released a new update, and this hash validation that we do as a security feature is what you're running up against. So Google Chrome releases an update, and then we have to download it, package it, and release a new catalog for it. Google Chrome usually releases their update at about 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is a great time to release updates. And so what you'll end up seeing is you'll get that hash error because we haven't had time yet to import it into our catalog, test it, and get it pushed back out. So you're technically running against the security feature saying, hey, this hash has changed. It's the same thing that would happen if like the binary is switched out by a malicious actor. It's just not being switched out by a malicious actor. In this case, it's being switched out by Google. They don't have static links. Google only has one link to the Chrome MSI, and it never changes. So whenever they update the app itself, they update where that link points, and you end up getting a bad hash.
Thank you. It is Google. That's the one we have.
It's Google Chrome. Yeah, that's a common one. We actually have like 4 different things monitoring whenever that hash changes so that we get it as soon as it comes out, because we know we'll get messages about it because most people want to update it on it immediately. So we check the Google Chrome link about every hour, and we usually have it the same day. But again, they release at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah, I can add maybe another scenario, but maybe less obvious scenario where vendors will use a CDN network to publish their update binaries. And so again, you may be in the position where the update binary they've released is available in one region, but it hasn't quite crossed over the CDN to another region. And you may end up with that same issue where the file that you're downloading, the hash is different to the one that we publish in the catalog. Less common, but certainly one that does crop up from time to time.
Thank you.
Yeah, rough. All right, next, pre-submitted. Why isn't it possible to have a postscript on updates like Adobe Reader? Currently, Patch My PC cannot remove the icon shortcut, so a postscript would have to solve that. Cody or Andrew?
Yeah, this one came up because of some fun issues with Adobe, but the question in general has been around for a little bit. So with MSPs right now, we are ingesting them directly into WSUS. And what that means is when they get created, we have less control over the metadata, namely the command line. We can't edit the command line with the current way we're ingesting them. And there's some advantages. The rules are automatically generated. The applicability rules, we rely on the MSP. It does all of the work for us there. But the caveat being, we can't change the command line. And if we can't change the command line, we can't call our script runner, which means we can't do all of the fun stuff we typically do. We've proof of concepted the changes to allow for this, but it's not something we've currently implemented. So I'm fairly confident this is a change that will come. But we want to be careful about it because right now we've got a very stable MSP update model because we just rely on all of the built-in tooling and all of the built-in rules. We don't want to make the MSP updates less reliable by adding features. So just trying to be careful. Best approach to get rid of the icons then. Andrew might be able to speak to that. Yeah.
Let me find the script for you. The icon thing should only happen in the previous release of Adobe. They actually released an emergency fix for that. What happened was they changed the icon name, and doing so, they broke anything stopping the icon from being created. But I have a script that you can use to run and that'll delete the icon from the desktop. Let me grab that and I'll throw it in the chat.
Yeah, we'll just say it's been a tough month for Adobe installation issues for us in the last couple updates they released this month.
I joke that we're calculating ROI on removing it versus customer satisfaction.
All right, so next pre-submitted question. How are plans for the PMPC cloud hosted solution? DJM, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So like we talked about before, we talk to customers a lot. And we have a set of customers that want to be cloud only or born in the cloud, Intune, no on-prem. There's also customers that would like maybe a more modern UI in the cloud rather than our local publisher UI. So we've been working for over a year now on our cloud solution. We still have a little ways to go. We know that there's other companies in the space that kind of do what we do, some of which have a SaaS only solution. We're pretty excited, and we'll have more to talk about probably in the next early 2023. But it's we've done a lot of research here, and I think the solution we have will be pretty interesting, especially compared to some of the other solutions that are already out there. Just to give a little example, the architecture we have for cloud will support not only Intune, but it'll support ConfigMan with a cloud UI, which for some people might be interesting, or it has potential multi-tenant capabilities as well. So yeah, we're making a lot of progress on this. We still have some ways to go. Surprisingly, it's a lot of work to redo something that's already been in market for quite a few years and from scratch in the cloud, but we are committed to this and we're making progress. I like that this question wasn't yes or no, it was how are the plans?
Made it tough. All right, let's
yes, in fact, Adam, we had talked about that in prep of this meeting. We have a way of tracking people that want to be early adopters. And we probably, when we get there, we'll run an early adoption program for probably 3 months before we go full public. So yeah, we're looking for people that are interested in being beta testers in production.
It looks like we have one hand raised. Feel free to come off on mute for your question.
Gayatri here from Stanford. I have a quick question regarding the detection logic. So we often have our end users go to vendor sites and grab the EXEs and install. And what I've seen is when we try to push the patcher PC, the detection logic always tries to check the ARP. I think it's mostly the MSI versions. That's the logic written in the custom script. So is there a way a patch PC can help us out in detecting the application irrelevant of whether it's an EXE or MSI so that we can have consistency in the environment?
So is it not detecting apps that have been installed before? Was that what you were saying?
So for example, we have seen Google Chrome in our environment. So there were users who installed Google Chrome EXE, and when we pushed out the Patch My PC update, it didn't detect the EXE version out there, and it failed. So and then when we include that logic, we customize the script, then we are able to track both MSIs and EXEs and able to push out properly. So those kind of scenarios I was mentioning.
So with Google Chrome here specifically, that is two separate applications. If a user is going and downloading Google Chrome, there's a decent chance they're going to grab the consumer-based Google Chrome application. So it's not so much EXE versus MSI. Those are two different applications. The enterprise one that we deploy, it is an MSI, but it's also an enterprise-specific product that Google is providing versus the executable, which is a consumer-based product. It actually even has the option to install in the user profile. We've seen customers, work to migrate from that user-based one to the consumer-based one to the enterprise one. But our script is deliberately checking for that enterprise-based product.
This is very similar to the 32 to 64-bit. MSI installers and EXE installers install completely separate products. In fact, for 7-zip, for example, you can install all 4 at the same time. They don't detect each other. They don't even know the other one exists. It's almost like you're installing completely different products, which is why you'll see us specify a lot of times in our catalog that it's the EXE or the MSI, because one won't necessarily uninstall the other or upgrade the other. So that is a challenge that I think we're going to be working on, but it basically involves uninstalling whatever you already have and installing the latest. And to me, that's pretty heavy-handed. I don't like making decisions for our customers. If you want to have both installed, then I'm going to let you. So it will probably end up being some sort of custom option to remove everything that was previously installed and then upgrade to the latest.
The thing is, we are not looking to install both the versions, EXEs and MSIs. What I was trying to mention is, it's just Google Chrome is an example that I gave, but we have seen a couple of apps when we're doing here in our environment. So basically, my question is, when we push out any patches or applications in our environment, we always try to maintain a consistency among the versions and applications. So we always want to have one flavor of it, not 2 flavors of the same application or 2 versions of the same application, right? So is there a way, what I was requesting is there a way Patchman PC can help us to make sure that when we push out that patch or an application, it can detect whatever versions are out there and push out? Because sometimes what we have seen is more than installing 2 versions, the installation was failing. So, and we had to troubleshoot when we go for major deployments or major patches released in our environment. So that was more like my intention was.
Yeah, so I think when we fix the 32, this came up earlier with the 32 to 64, it's going to be a very similar solution. So I think when we create a feature that will help you migrate from 32 to 64, it'll also help you migrate to the specific EXE or MSI installation that you want.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Alrighty, So can a request be made to have software added to the Patch My PC library? Looks like this one was assigned to you, Andrew.
Yes.
Yeah. So a little more context than just yes. Our user voice. So this is where we actually request apps. Could someone throw this link in the chat window as well? Ideas.patchmypc.com. So this is where our customers can go and request new applications or new features they want to see added to the product. And this is the main factor that we use when we're looking through new products to add that would provide value. We do also have a roadmap, so you can see all the products that we've added in the past directly based on our customer feedback. So anything that's in dark blue that shows as a new product, these would be requests that customers requested for us that we added to the catalog. So I'd say on average, we're probably roughly between 8 to 15 new products per month. And this is something that we're focusing on quite a bit to try to ramp up speed to address requests from customers as well. Anything to add on to that, Ben or Andrew? I know that you guys are doing a lot of this work to help address some of these requests.
Yeah, I can add to that. I can say that it's really important that you tell us which apps you want on the ideas.patchmypc.com, because there are thousands of apps in the world, and we're not going to spend time adding apps that you don't use or won't find useful. So absolutely go to the page, add an app if it doesn't exist, or vote up an app if it does exist. And voting is good as well, because you'll get notified once we add it to the catalog. You'll get notified when we make a comment. So if there are particular struggles with an application, we may pose a question there. So definitely keep an eye on that page and interact with it.
And provide as much info as you can when you're submitting an app, and feel free to leave a comment with more info. A lot of times we get really vague info on the app that you want, and some companies are really bad about naming their apps. And so you'll request something and it'll be like there's 4 different options for the same name of the app. And so we kind of have to guess. I've more than one time I've added an app and then the customer comes back and says, that's not the app I asked for. And I couldn't tell the difference between the apps. So a lot of our time is spent, I would say most of our time is spent not like figuring out detection and stuff, but doing the research for the app itself, determining how it's installed, finding where the release notes are, finding a good page to download the app from. All that info really helps us speed things along.
Yeah. Alrighty. Next question was, which are the recommended steps to perform or logs to check for troubleshooting issues with Patch My PC? What are the most common issues? Yeah, call Andrew's direct line. No, but to kind of walk through what we typically see, and the answer is going to change a little bit depending on the situation. So if it's an issue where applications are failing to publish, there we go. Let me jump in that one. It's likely going to be on the publisher side, which would be the patchmypc.log. So if we're failing to even get updates or applications into your environment, it's going to be likely the patchmypc.log that we would want to get in a support case. So if you open a support case at patchmypc.com/support, there's actually a variety of different scenarios depending on the situation that will kind of prompt you, what is the best log for this case? So that's one example. If we're not even able to get the update or the app to your environment, we would be asking for this log. Now, in addition, generally when you open a case, we have this feature called collect logs, and we can save a zip file of all the relevant logs that are most helpful for various situations on the server side. So for example, this would get the patchmypc.log. It would also get the patch downloader. So this would tell us if ADRs are failing. We would pull some things like rule engine, which would also be ADR related, and then some various different logs around your software update point and the synchronization status. So if it's a server side, using the collect logs will generally get us what we need, but it will also depend on whether it's an issue where we can't get updates into your environment or apps, or whether it's something on the config manager or Intune side, like related to ADRs or software update synchronization. Now, in addition to that, there's also a lot of client-side logs. So let's say that we're trying to troubleshoot an issue on the client. There's a different set of logs, and we have our FAQ when you're submitting this, is what would be the logs for both ConfigMgr Intune if there's something failing, and that would be a different set. So it kind of depends on the scenario, whether it's client or server side, really for what logs that we'll generally ask for to troubleshoot different types of situations. Awesome. Okay, Aaron, do you want to come off unmute for your question?
Yes, thank you, Justin. I want to go back to what Andrew mentioned just before this question here. I'm wondering if you guys have considered or would consider, without having to hire, 20 more Patch My PC engineers, have you considered, for lack of better terms, maybe crowdsourcing some of that data collection and processing to where the community can help you and submit the information that you need, or at least help gather that for you, and then you go back and review that and help expedite some of the packaging so we can move from and sorry, I know you don't like the word packaging, but to where we can
It's
move
hard not
from,
to use.
right, exactly. To move from 10 to 15 new products a month to maybe 20, 25 new products a month or something of that nature.
Yes, the answer is yes. So, and by the way, we hit 30 apps in August, right, Andrew?
35.
35, yeah.
35 apps.
I don't know if
we
Cisco
are
any kind of
accelerating.
changing their name counts.
But positively, what you said is something that we talk about and consider. It's a tricky balance of we know that we are a key security provider for our customers, so making sure that the information and the apps that we put in there are, not tamperable, no maliciousness, even if they're being crowdsourced. Right now, it's only Patch My PC engineers that are touching the command lines and doing the testing and make sure the binaries are correct and the hash. And so we are confident that they're secure. And we do want to scale that out and include passionate customers in helping us seed that information. And we want to keep our high bar on security. So for example, a lot of times I see things like some of these communities out there that are repositories, whether it's Chocolatey or Winget, and I'm skeptical how they are going to maintain the security with so many people adding content. Because there's a lot of maliciously motivated people in the world, and it just takes one and one app slipping through. But the answer to your question, Aaron, is yes. We talk about it all the time, and I'm confident we will actually do it. And as soon as we can do it in the way that we can guarantee that we're going to keep our customers secure.
Great, thank you, David.
Right. Let's see. Okay. Cody and Adam, how to properly configure pre and post scripts so that they can be part of the package rather than being called from a network share.
Yeah, for sure. So the good news is that's already what it does. So when you add a file with a pre-post script, which I think Justin's pulling up right now, it is added into the package source content. So for example, we've got a post script here, and it is pointing at a UNC path. But when the client gets it, it is not referencing that UNC path. That content is pre-PostScript, additional files, additional folders, all of these options here. They are added into the content of the update, the Intune package, the ConfigMan app. So you'll actually see the resulting file is going to contain, it was there, Justin. It's the last one you were in.
I think that was, let me see if I can find the Chrome one.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Yeah, there it is. So at the bottom there, you can see it. So it is included. So if you add additional files or folders, and then let's say you add a pre or a post script, and you actually want to reference that file. A common one might be a PowerShell script that references an INI file and is going to do some copy pasting. You can reference that current directory, right? You could use $ps script root or those silly variables for command files, the DP0. That content's going to be there. So you don't need to, the client is not even aware of the UNC paths. It's all there. I think Adam actually wrote a proof of concept article that shows an example of this for something, I want to say. I can try to find that.
Yeah, I know we have a Notepad++ example for copying a plugin. Okay, you already got it.
There
awesome.
It is.
Perfect. Right. Does anyone want to raise hand and maybe ask a question over voice before our next pre-submitted question? Okay. Okay, we have a raised hand. Do you want to come off unmute?
Oh, yeah,
There you
it
go.
was off. Yeah, so Ken Schaefer from D&B. So the only question I have is we utilize your ConfigMgr apps section, which is great for, deploying to Software Center. And in the options, I'm trying to figure out how exactly it works with, here's our goal is what I want to do. So say I have Google Chrome out there in Software Center that people can download. I always want it to be the most up-to-date version available from Patch My PC. But I think I'm having issues with trying to figure out what options I need to make sure that when they click Google Chrome, that they are getting the newest version, if that makes any sense.
Sure. Ben, Andrew, would one of you want to talk through how this option works?
I can talk about that option. So our default option here, update the existing version or update the existing app. When a new app is when a new version comes out, that will basically ensure that you always have the latest. What we do is we'll create, like when we first publish the app, we'll create an initial app object that'll point to the latest. And then when a new version comes out, we will update the deployment type, detection method, the name of the app, everything in the back end. So we'll update all of that on the back end, but the app object itself will stay the same. And so that app object within ConfigMgr will always point to the latest version.
Okay.
I do like to point out, we do have that retain option now. Can you show that retain option really quick, Justin?
Sure. Yeah, let me jump back there in a sec.
Is that a recently new option? No.
Yeah.
Well, which option specifically?
Which option? Yes. The retain or the just in the global options. You can do this per app as well. So if you want, you can do this per app. We'll show that too.
Update has been there since inception, I believe, Keith.
Yeah,
update existing is original
always been the default. Yeah, but this retain option down here at the bottom is relatively new. What this will do, especially when you have the update existing applications metadata option checked, what this retain option will do is it will actually make a copy first. So it's going to copy the app with the old version, and then it will update the original app object to be the latest again. So that one's really cool because you can have a backup always, but then still always keep the main version or the main one up to date all the time. So that one, if you throw it in your task sequence, it's always going to be up to date.
All right, that answers my question. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to see if I could do a quick demo to kind of show how it updates in place, but see here, it looks like I did not actually publish Chrome ahead of time. So
yeah, my only concern is that when I go into Software Center, it says, yeah, it's been updating and all that. But I guess if we had the Google Chrome 90 in the description tag somewhere, that it won't change that. So I guess I'm going to have to just strip out that stuff. So it just says Google Chrome and that's it.
That shouldn't.
So we update the version number in the title and stuff when we update the app. We do also have an option that you can remove the version number, but we always update the version number.
If I recall correctly, Andrew, if you have that option on with retention, the latest version will always just say Google Chrome 64, and the backup or retained one will show the version number.
No, I think they'll also the version number. I don't know.
Yeah, so let's see if we can. I just ran Chrome, so let's see if that exists here now. So now we've got,
because it still shows 90. Even though I think it's back, running it correctly.
I suspect you are the victim of a bug from a long time ago. So there are situations where we sort of lose the chain of apps. You likely are running your Google Chrome that you have there that's deployed out, likely got disconnected from the chain a long time ago. I bet if you, I mean, feel free to put in a ticket is I guess what I would say. We should be able to get you squared away. If you've got a version that old, it's probably from a bug.
Yeah. Yeah, I do
because
recall
it should
that.
be updating it.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So just
go ahead.
yeah, let's get a ticket and we'll be able to kind of repair that relationship for that old one, like if you lost it, and that should be pretty quick. But yeah, that does make sense. I recall this happening quite a while ago where that chain did get broken for a specific update. I think it was back around 90.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Sure. All right. While we wait for that to update, let me jump back to the PowerPoint. My computer is quite laggy at the moment. Let's see. All right, Andrew and Adam, after a failed installation or upgrade, how often will PMPC Intune attempt to install/upgrade again? I think LeView just made a blog about this, didn't it?
He actually did. The answer is it depends.
Yeah.
But LeView did a pretty detailed post, I think.
Well,
right?
it also depends. So for the apps that we create, it's technically every 24 hours. But what actually happens normally when you're doing an Intune application, when it fails, it throws a quick retry and it tries to do it again in 5 minutes, and it does that 3 times. And it says, you know what? I'm gonna wait 24 hours before I try it again.
I just posted the link in the chat.
Awesome.
Yeah, the globe when it fails in that instance, the application needs to exit with an exit code that the Win32 app is aware of. So when you're on the Win32 app properties, and you can specify custom exit codes, if the application fails and the Intune agent knows about the exit code, it will go into that state that Jake just described, where it'll try 3 times for the next 5 minutes. And then if it fails that 3rd time, it will fall back to the global resource scheduler. So LeView's done an awesome post on this. So if you have questions around retries for Intune, I think he's got an awesome, somebody's put it in chat, an awesome flowchart as well, just to show you the logic behind those app retries.
Yeah, and Justin, actually, can you go back and present? So when these guys are talking about a blog post, we actually spun up a second website, and it's at patchtuesday.com. And our intention here is that when it's Patch Tuesday, if you want the latest and greatest news on what's happening in the Microsoft payload that releases on Patch Tuesday, we are trying to keep that live update going on patchtuesday.com. And for fun, we also release a blog every Patch Tuesday. And our last month blog was by our engineer LeView that goes into excruciating detail on this question, which he spent a lot of time testing and screenshotting all the different behaviors, because the answer is all over the map on what the retry times are and what the error codes are. So yeah, go to patchtuesday.com and find that blog from LeView.
All right, let me try to jump back to the slide. For some reason, my computer is very laggy. Let's try to see if I can get over here. Is the screen share still working okay for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, so Jake, do you want to read off and take this one?
Yeah. So how does Patch My PC integrate with Intune? The answer is right on there, really. So we utilize the Microsoft Graph. It's an API that Microsoft provides. From there, you create an Azure app registration. Now you have full control over this. There ends up being 6 permissions, forgive me, that we're interested in when we're creating that app registration. 5 are centered around device management. 1's going to be for group member access, so we can actually see all your different assignments and things like that. And then from there, we just create the content, push it up in Intune, and that's about it. We can help you out with your deployments. You could deploy them yourselves from the Intune portal as well. Again, we make the content. Intune actually does the delivery piece of it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add to that as well. I've put a link in the chat. So for anybody who doesn't know this, this is awesome. So like Jake said, we use just graph calls. So we're using URLs to add stuff, delete stuff, change stuff. So you can see what's going on yourself. If you go to the Endpoint Manager Admin Center, just install this Edge add-on, the Graph X-Ray, and you'll see the calls made to Graph on, like, if you're looking at apps or editing apps. So that's a really cool way to get started with the Graph as well. And just on the back of DJam's point, we did quite an extensive blog on an introduction to Graph as well on the Patch Tuesday blog. So
which I just linked in the chat.
Add that to your favorites. There's some really cool stuff in the pipeline for community blogs on the patchtuesday.com.
Right. Jump back over here.
Hey, Justin, we were talking offline, and how do you feel about doing a swag it, and we will ship some swag to the winner?
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome.
Okay, since I know you got to spin that up while we're answering a question, maybe next time someone's answering a question, you could spin that up.
Yep, for sure. Alrighty, how are support tickets handled when submitting from the website directly? Jake?
So when there's, honestly, it really doesn't matter if they're submitted from the website directly or if you just email support@patchmypc.com. They go to the same inbox essentially. And they're handled via round robin at the end of the day. So it basically goes out to all of our different teams. If someone isn't available, another team member will step in. We usually try to get a pretty quick response out right away. But ultimately, the first, rule of thumb is let's get some logs. Like, what issue are you facing? And based on that, we'll grab some logs. We'll take a look at those logs. And then depending on the results of those, we most likely have a KB article that can already resolve the issue. Or we might want to dig a little bit deeper. Maybe we want some other logs, or maybe we'll set up a remote session to kind of dig and see what's actually going on. And then eventually you're led to hopefully a resolution.
Okay, anyone want to come off unmute for the next question?
Did we answer Freddie Sevilla's question? His hand's been up, and I don't know if we've given him an opportunity.
I don't see a hand up.
I don't either.
But my teams might be delayed. Like I'm struggling with some lagging here, so
Probably
a good chance.
Freddie, if you're out there, just speak up, Freddie. Oh, Steven's got a question.
Yeah, Steve, you want to come off mute and ask your question?
There we go.
Yeah, I've got a ticket out there. Back with Adobe Acrobat. During OSD, we cannot get Adobe Acrobat to install. Whatever I do, I have to switch over to the continuous x64, and it fails as well. So I go into and I just created a task sequence by itself, standalone after the machine is imaged, and both of them fail. I'm just looking at a task sequence now, still reporting the older version as the GUID in the task, and not the 63 or whatever it is. It's saying the task is saying still it's the wrong one.
So if you actually take a look at the logs on your device for the failure, it's probably getting a 15021 error. And we actually call this out on our known issues page, and I can get you a link.
Okay.
It is pretty much specific to task sequence actions. Now we have seen it work in some environments, and others it just refuses to. I've seen it work in autopilot scenarios as well. I did just throw on the known issues page. It is a little bit farther down, but we do call out specifically that you'll get that error, and that there is a chance that it will not work in a task sequence. And I will say the likelihood is probably around 70% that it won't. Unfortunately, it's an Adobe issue.
Yeah, this happened after the upgrade that failed, and they put out another one, and they haven't worked for the last 3 weeks. Now, if I add it into Software Center and do a standalone install, it installs fine.
It works great, right? Yeah.
I can actually, what I would say to that is that we feel your pain. So I've been able to reproduce the exact error in my lab. So running in interactive as a user. So not as an unattended task sequence in the system context. And I was still getting the 15.0201 error with the Adobe latest release. So this is a known error that's been around for a while, but we do still have it on our radar, and we are still putting time into it to understand the issue, to see if there's anything that we can do. Even though this is an Adobe issue, they've introduced this bug. So we've been doing some digging. We can't promise that we can fix it for Adobe, but we are putting time into it to see if we can help.
Okay, well, like I said, I switched to the 64-bit version of it, and it's still doing it as well. So
yeah, I had it in 60 in my lab today. I had 32-bit was fine. The 64-bit was getting that error.
The 64-bit has had it since release.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't using it. I was just regularly doing the continuous 32-bit version, and
I think they introduced the problem in the latest 32-bit now, but the 64-bit hasn't worked with since release.
Okay. And you put this in the chat so I can copy the link out to share with my folks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If anyone has like an Adobe support contract and maybe would want to work with us to get more of the technical details, we could likely try to work with you to see if we can get some traction on the Adobe side.
That's awesome. So we know exactly where the failure is. We've been able to reproduce it in the lab, so we know where it fails, but we don't know why. So that's a great call out.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Lower hand. All right, so it looks like let's just jump to one more pre-submit, and then we'll come back for another raised hand. Okay, so this one looks like we didn't have anyone specifically assigned to it. Any plans to integrate with PSADT?
I think DJM had words on this.
Yeah, I think DJM has thoughts here.
I don't know. That's what I said. My thought was this: like, we have a technology that does what PSADT does. It's not as open ended and as open sourced, and so my comment was, I wish I knew why this person was asking. So if they're on the call, we would love you to come off mute and we could talk about PSADT, because what we'd really like to do is understand the scenarios that you think you need PSADT for, because we think that we could solve it better or innovate the product to be a better experience. So that's really the conversation. And I could actually ask some questions in chat that people could reply to, or a poll about PSADT, because it's really about the scenarios. A lot of the functionality available in PSADT we've already added in line with our product, and it's better integrated from an experience than just PSADT. And so I'm just looking for more specifically, what would the improvements be that you would be looking for?
Yeah, and while we're maybe waiting to get some answers there, if the person's on the call, like one of those specific features that we built in a while back was, what if an application is in use by a user and it needs to be closed in order for that app to update? So we have a right-click option, and we document about 20 applications that we know will fail if it's in use. And I can include, someone can include this knowledge base. But what we can do is we can natively show a pop-up on the client side that looks something like this. And I'll actually jump over to a client that we initiated this, because I do know this is a question about the pop-up later on as well. But this is one example where you don't have to worry about scripting and coding and going and using that. Is if there's an app like Notepad that we know will fail if it's open and an update's applying, in a couple clicks, you can simply create a pop-up with custom branding, for example, custom verbiage, where you can just prompt the user to close and notify. So that's one example that David was talking about, where we want to give a more easy experience. Now, if there was a situation, there's nothing stopping you from having a custom pre or post script where you could simply add all the files required from a PSADT content package and folders, and you could execute the script before or after. So you could do it today using the pre and post options, but I think ideally we don't want to have that additional complexity. We want to try to build the scenarios in, like David was saying, to just make this natively work quite easily.
And one of the examples is we use this catalog. We use it 4 ways. We use it for Intune updates and apps, and then we use it for ConfigMan updates and apps. And you can't use PSADT in all 4 of those. So we'd rather have the capabilities that you need in all the different flows that we provide updates and apps through.
Okay, cool. All right, we have a raised hand. Would you like to come up with your question?
Hi, this is Gayatri again from Stanford. So I have a question regarding the manage conflicting process. We have seen that Patchma PC provides an option to set the timer. So my question was more like, we do have requests coming in to have some kind of timer more than what is there, because the maximum alert time is around 300 seconds on Patchma PC. So is there a way Patchma PC can enhance this feature so that the timer thing can be increased? Because we often get requests from end users to customize the display prompt and the timing, like maybe 1 hour or so. So it really depends on the end users or the business who reach out to us, push out the application. So is there anything that Patchma PC is looking into those areas?
Yeah, so Cody actually just coded this. So Cody, maybe you want to talk about some of the features. I know the config manager enhancement was directly based on us requesting a user voice for it. So yeah, maybe you can talk about what we did here.
Definitely, yeah. So Justin's already got these pulled up. So there's another checkbox there on the left-hand side, use config manager update maximum runtime. So instead of specifying a static timeout, we will query for the configured max runtime. And then that max runtime in a newer version of ConfigMan, we've got it on the right there. So the very bottom one, maximum runtime for all other software updates outside of the categories, such as third party. If you configure this option on the right, you can say, okay, I want it to be 1 hour, for example, and then you have that checkbox set on the left. You're going to get you'll get a 45-minute timeout. Now, the 45 minutes is because we have a 15-minute buffer, and our docs cover it. The more info link on that notify timeout configuration, we discuss the buffer. So there's always going to be a 15-minute buffer for us. And that's because after the user clicks install, or after the notification closes down, we need time to install. So that 15-minute buffer lets us have time to install and not trip over your max runtime. So there are some existing options to give you flexibility here. The top option being limited to 300 is because the default runtime for updates is 10 minutes. And so we want to have at least a 5-minute window to do the install. So we're just trying to protect customers from breaking or causing issues in their environments, because that window, when it pops up, is actually a blocking event. Configuration Manager is going to sit there and wait for that process to close, and it's going to stop any other ConfigMan app or update from running, because they all run synchronously back to back. So there are some flexible options here, though, to work around that.
Yeah, and do we recall what build Config Manager released? Was it 2203 or maybe 2207?
I have to look. I don't know offhand.
But can I just say this last option was added by me? I requested it at MMS.
Yeah. So yeah, by default it was, it used to be 5 minutes purely because this wasn't an option. But this, you can now increase this to get that additional timeout.
Oh, thank you all for the detail. Yeah, thank you all for the details. I just have one more quick thing to add to that. Is there a way we can customize the message as well to the end users? Is there a feature for that as well that you have worked upon?
There is, yeah. So what you can do is over here where it says manage default settings, you have the ability to come into this UI and you can change a lot of different things here. So for example, you have an org name. If you wanted to make custom messages per language, so you can also have multiple languages here that show different messages based on the client side. So this is the default message that will show by default. Let's say, you can make this whatever you want for the main text. And if we go preview that, you can see, this is now the main text. So you could make this very customized, so it aligns to your branding and verbiage to make sure that there's a trust Like if you have kind of standard things, it's more trusted by your end users so that you don't get help desk tickets. But this is all fully configurable, where you can add custom text and multiple languages here, both for install, uninstall, and update. So these are all configurable here. Great question.
Thank you. Can you click on the preview thing again? I just want to check one more thing.
Sure.
Yeah. So here on the preview thing, we see close install and then snooze install, right? Is there a way we can add more options like customize option if we want?
The buttons are not currently customizable. There is a user voice to be able to customize them, but those are currently static. So if it's an update, it'll say close and update. If it's an app, it'll say close and install. If it's an uninstall, it will say close and uninstall. So they are a little dynamic. And there are some translations as well. If we have some built-in provided translations, which I think we've got a handful of translated languages, the buttons do translate. For example, French, German, Spanish, I believe, will translate the buttons automatically based on language code, but they are not directly translatable right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Could you paste in the user voice, Cody, of the customizing that?
If I can find it.
So
sure.
Once we get that, if you vote that up, if we add the functionality where you can customize that text, you'll get notified if you vote that up in our user voice. That'd be a good way to kind of stay up to date if we've made any progress there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, great question. One was around best practice for upgrading software update points. So I'll include this link in the video. So, this is becoming kind of common now where a lot of the previous operating systems that would have been running WSUS are becoming end of life. So we do have a full guide here that will cover how you can upgrade. There's only one kind of situation that's applicable that you want to watch out for is if you're using third-party updates. Microsoft in their WSUS implementation in Server 2019, they changed the way the hashing is done for creating the vendors and categories. If somebody could maybe copy that link just so people are aware of it. Okay, you already got it.
Yeah.
Perfect. So this guide will be, go ahead, Cody.
I was going to mention, just because the text is a little confusing, it's not specifically from 2016, it's going to 2019. So if you migrate any SUP, whether it's 2012, 2012 R2, or 2016, and if you migrate to 2019 or 2022, you're going to see that issue. I pasted the link. It's duplicate patch my PC category listing.
All right, Adam, looks like this one is for you.
So we've seen notifications, how to configure the notifications if the software is running, but this one's a little bit different. If the software itself, when it's installed, returns an exit code that indicates a reboot, the question is, how does Patch My PC handle that prompt? We don't produce the prompt. We depend on the platform. So that means either Configuration Manager or Intune to produce that information to the user that either indicate to them with like a little toast notification or a tooltip or a little bubble to say, hey, a reboot is needed, or produce a countdown. And that's if the installer returns an exit code that means a pending reboot is there. The device needs a reboot to complete the install. Our user experience, that's configurable. Whether you want the users to see a notification at all produced from the software center or from Intune. It's also configurable to the countdown timer, how long you want that to be visible for. But again, the key point I want to make here is that we don't produce that notification. It's produced from the platform that we integrate with. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to follow up on that.
Good. Right. Are there any plans to increase the frequency of updates being published? Cody or DJAM?
Yes. So actively, we have a daily catalog release. There are occasions where we have more than one in a day. Those are typically happening when we've got a 0-day or an otherwise critical fix for an application. So we've definitely done our share of multi-catalog release days or weekend releases. But in general, we have every intention of having a much more dynamic catalog that's not necessarily daily so much as it's on the fly generated as we are doing testing and validation.
Yeah, exactly that. And we've been growing and hiring at Patch My PC, and we're at the point end of this month where we actually have people working every time zone across the globe, which means we can always service customers and be attentive to updates that need to be packaged and shipped out to our customers. So as Cody said, we're working on building more kind of a continuous pipeline where we can put updates into the pipeline, and as soon as they pass testing, they can go out to our customers instead of just once a day in one big catalog drop. So we're pretty excited about it, actually. And if you've seen, Chrome's had a couple of days where they've had multiple releases in a single day because of security issues. So we're very aware of the need to do it.
Right. Do you plan to implement drivers? So we don't have any short-term plans to implement drivers, primarily because they're already available today, either through ConfigMgr or the Windows Update catalog. So you have the option to come into the console. Let me just include our FAQ about drivers. And you can actually add some of the built-in catalogs, and there's even some filtering improvements that have happened recently as well in some of the more recent versions of ConfigMgr, where you can add the catalogs natively from the vendor. So we don't have any short-term plans to add drivers into our product, just the third-party applications right now. Okay. And last pre-submitted one that we have here is the ability to have multiple people log in. So this is one that we're looking at around the SaaS in some of the innovation that we'll be doing. There's a big focus where we're thinking a lot about multi-user for the admin UI.
Yeah, that's right. The way that our architecture for on-prem works, it's a local application installs in user space, and in bigger customers, that means you have to log in and use it, and many customers doing it, or many users simultaneously. It just doesn't work. The cloud architecture will be a lot better. We can do role-based security and access control. So we're going to do it there first, and it might project back to our on-prem solution. But that's the order in which we would do not just multiple people logging in, but per user security within customer environments.